And our morning show brought to you by Landmark of Taylorville. You always do better at Landmark and People's Bank and Trust. We put people first. And if I pressed all the right buttons, Valerie, you should be able to hear me. How are you this morning?
I am doing well. How are you?
Good, and that's half the battle right there, is making sure all the buttons are pressed. So we're off to a roaring start. All right, good to have you on the show this morning, and it really doesn't feel like it's summer. The temperatures just have been really, really wacky. It's June 5th, and it feels like it's May 5th.
It really does. It feels like a beautiful April showers kind of day. So we just roll with it here in Illinois. I mean, what else can you do?
I joked with somebody else this morning that it would, if tomorrow I woke up and it was 102, it wouldn't shock me. Like it just feels like that's just Illinois.
Yep, pretty much.
So kids are out of school, and boy, I tell you what, I've had the kids home now for about 2 weeks, and I'm already done with it, and I work 60 hours a week, so I can't imagine how my wife is holding up. But summer break is in full swing.
So I have a question for you then.
Yes.
Your kids have been out of school for 2 weeks.
Yep.
How long did it take them to say, I'm bored?
3 days.
3 days. Mine was 2.
Okay.
at least my youngest child. My oldest child hasn't been bored quite yet. She's enjoying her break so far. But yeah, it doesn't take long for these kiddos to get bored, and you got to find something for them to do and keep them entertained, and there's so much more behind that other than just keeping them like safe and healthy and happy. It's also just keeping their minds fresh and aware and thinking and trying new things. So it can be a lot of pressure for a parent to suddenly have to fill all of this time.
Yes,
but we can do it.
Yes, it kills me. These kids say they're bored, and I'm like, you have the whole outside world, you have the whole internet, you have everything at your fingertips. Stop it. You can't be bored.
Well, and I grew up in the 80s, so my experience was quite different than my kids' experience. And
Yes.
all of the jokes about your parents would kick you out of the house, and you drank out of the garden hose,
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
came home when the street lights came on. That was all very true for me growing up. But it is a little different for these kiddos, and they definitely have a lot more at their fingertips than we did. And they're looking for that constant instant gratification.
I know it. I don't think my kids believe that the internet. I don't think that my kids believe that I was around when the internet wasn't.
I know that's hard for them to believe. My children also kind of wonder how we survived without it.
So, but yeah, definitely figuring out ways to keep them entertained and keep them, especially on rainy days. When it is warmer outside, we've done a pretty good job of making sure the kids get outside, go ride bikes around the area and do stuff outdoors. But on days like today or days like yesterday, that proves that can be a little bit of a challenge.
It really can be. I try to get people to think about, well, what did you do as a kid? What kind of things did you do during the summer? And again, growing up in the 80s, my summers were a little bit different. My grandma both of my grandparents were retired, and so we had opportunities to go over to their house and do things with them, learn new things. My grandma taught me how to sew, how to cook, how to bake, and so we had all of these different opportunities, where these days it seems like grandparents are still working, parents are still working, and so sometimes it's a little harder to have those experiences with your kids that maybe my generation got to have, that sometimes we overlook. So I've got to ask you, if you remember one fun thing that you did as a kid that you don't think kids do anymore or do as much, what would that be?
Oh man, I tell you what, maybe going out to the baseball diamond and just playing, and a group of kids would get together. We just kind of play stickball out there, and there wouldn't be a score. Everyone would get a turn at bat, and you just kind of play. Otherwise than that, we had a very generic, and I'm now that I'm older, it was probably really generic slip and slide that we set up and used the hose on as well, that we would go crazy on, especially on the warmer days. But those are two really specific memories that I have of my time from when I was like 9 to about when I was 16.
So you brought up two great things. One, just going and playing ball. So that isn't something that kids do today, because as parents and educators, we have learned to, try to be very wise with our time and try to cram as much as we can into their little brains as we can. But sometimes that doesn't give kids the freedom to try to figure things out on their own. And so that's an experience that we had that sometimes they don't get. And it's important because it gives them socialization skills. It gives them skills to learn who can be a leader in certain situations, who can be the one that speaks up and says, hey, that's not fair, it's this person's turn, or who can be the one that can come up with creative ideas for how you're going to play the game. And so it's very important to give kids opportunities like that when you can, to give them a little bit of a rope to have some freedom with and enjoy things with, because that is so important. And so that's one of the things that is often overlooked. I still like to keep an eye on them. Know
Yeah.
where they're at, and keep an eye on them. But instead of having everything always organized, having an organized team all the time, sometimes just go out and play. Just figure out some kids in the neighborhood and go out and play is important to let them do on their own.
Yeah, I tell you what, over the weekend, my daughter's sick. She took her training wheels off the bike. I didn't know she took the training wheels off the bike, and she was trying to learn how to ride. She asked me for help, and I sat there behind her, and I thought, oh my goodness, how did my dad teach me how to ride? Like, that is one of the most weirdest things to try to teach somebody else, is how to, because it's something that you just kind of, I don't know. It was really bizarre sitting there as the father trying to figure out a way that I could teach my kid how to ride a bike.
And eventually, you have to let go and they have to figure it out, right?
Yeah.
That's just how it goes. So, yeah, and it's just keeping that in mind, because, I know I'm that parent that schedules everything for my kids and has them involved in traditional softball sports.
Yeah.
But it is important to give them a little bit of leeway so that they can just create and imagine on their own. The other thing is, you had mentioned, on these rainy days, how it gets so hard to find creative opportunities to keep them busy. And this is when I really think we can put everything that they've learned in school the year before into actual real life practice for them. And one of the ways I like to do that is cooking, because you have to be able to read the directions. You have to be able to measure and understand, all of the different, whether it's teaspoons or cups and, fractions, you have to figure all that out, ounces. And so they have a lot of opportunities to read different measurements. And so doing that with your child can really help them put everything that they've learned into a real life scenario and make it a little bit more understandable and enjoyable to finally get to use what they've learned.
It does do a lot of teaching, especially with numbers and things like that, when it comes to cooking and things, as far as being able to measure stuff out and be able to follow directions. I mean, there's so much that goes into it that I don't think kids realize that they're learning while they're doing it.
Well, and that's what I like to do. I like to hide that learning.
Yeah.
You don't tell them that they're
No.
learning, and you don't tell them that you're going to practice those math skills by, practicing fractions. You just say, "Hey, let's go make some Rice Krispie treats," and then kind of, you know, sprinkle the creativity and the learning in while you're doing that.
Secrets with Valerie Belusco right here on the WTIM, your information station, as we get things kicked off this morning. All right, Valerie, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have much more, talk to you a little bit more about the importance of play when it comes to children, and talk a little bit, maybe, who knows what else we'll talk about. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about scheduling as well. But Valerie Belusco joining us this morning. She is the Community and Economic Development Educator with the University of Illinois Extension. Our online stream brought to you by Landmark of Taylorville. You always do better at Landmark, and People's Bank Bank and Trust, where we put people first. Back in just a moment.
Your information station, WTIM.
Let's check the markets now on the RFD Radio Network. I'm Jim Taylor. Corn, beans, and Chicago wheat all steady at this hour. July corn down 2.5, 436 1/4. September corn up 3/4, 428 3/4. December corn 445 1/2, up 1 3/4. July beans up 1 1/4, 1046 1/4. August beans up 1 3/4, 1040 1/2. November beans 1027 1/4, up 2 1/4. July wheat up 1 1/2, 544 3/4. September wheat up 2, 559 1/4. July bean meal 295.90, down $1.20. July bean oil 46.70, down 11 cents. Livestock market, August feeders 306.20, up 232. June live cattle 220.07, up $1.67. June lean hogs $100.22, up 1/4. Energy market, July crude oil 63.69, up 84 cents. Jim Taylor, RFD Radio
When
Network.
it comes to connecting with America's farmers and ranchers, nothing beats the authentic voice of Ag Radio. Farm broadcasters have been the voice of rural America since 1944, building trusted relationships with agricultural producers across generations. Today, the network of over 140 Ag radio stations reaches farmers and ranchers during their most productive hours when they're actively working their operations and making business decisions. What makes Ag Radio uniquely effective? Farmers listen to farm broadcasters for information that directly impacts their livelihood. When your message is delivered alongside crucial weather updates, market reports, and agricultural news, it receives the same attention and credibility. Farm Radio Connects offers agricultural advertisers targeted access to this engaged audience through professionals who understand both broadcasting and agriculture. According to the National Association of Farm Broadcasting, 78% of farmers consider information from farm broadcasters highly trustworthy. When you need to reach rural America effectively, choose the voices they already trust. Visit IllinoisFarmRadio.com and discover how Ag Radio can elevate your agricultural marketing strategy.
If your heart beats for the heartland, for the pace and rhythm of the life we enjoy here, you'll be relieved to know you're close to experts who can care for your heart if it falls out of rhythm or the pace is not what it should be. At Prairie Cardiovascular, our doctors have a passion for pursuing advances in care, for providing the right treatment at the right time, whatever your needs. When you choose Prairie Cardiovascular, you'll know your heart is in the right place.
Get a quality, low-maintenance manufactured home from Hillcrest Manufactured Homes in Taylorville. Park it at Bailey Park or Hillcrest Park. It's priced right, low maintenance, and close to medical care. Learn more at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
Brenda Elder here, the Executive Director of the Shelby County Economic Development Corporation. From growing your business to attracting new investment, we're here to help. Find out more by clicking our icon at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
WTIM.
Leroy Clamola here with you on WTIM, your information station. Joining us this morning is Valerie Belasco, Community and Economic Development Educator with U of I Extension. And Valerie, you and I could talk for hours, I believe, about growing up in the 80s and the differences between growing up then and growing up now. And it's funny because as a kid, I never understood a lot of the stuff that the adults do. And now that I'm an adult, I'm like, I get it now. I so get it now.
It's definitely interesting to look back and, kind of understand your parents and go, oh man, maybe I shouldn't have been such a little jerk about that. Maybe they were onto something. But, as kids, it's hard to understand everything. And that's just part of the growing process. So that's what we do.
It is. And part of that important process is going outside and playing. And I don't think, we sit on our phones and we sit and we scroll TikTok and all that, but there is a big healthy portion of development that comes from just playing.
There really is. I will say my kids, if they had a choice, if they weren't going swimming in the summer, they would probably stay in the house all summer if no one, pushed them to do anything else.
Yep.
And especially when they were little. And that has its ups and its downs. But what we want is we want the kids to get outside. So my youngest child loves to read, and if I see her sitting on the couch reading a book, I love that she's reading the book, right? But if it's nice outside, go outside and read. And I want her to do that because there's little things outside that annoy her, like bugs and
Yes.
flies, and there might be a bee that she sees from, 20 feet away, and she, starts freaking out. And we have to get them to understand, that it's part of nature and it's okay. It just helps kind of desensitize them a little
Yeah.
bit. So thinking about, having them do things that they like to do, even if it's just getting them outside and doing it outside can be important. If they're practicing guitar or maybe they're in a band and they're practicing trumpet, something like that, do it outside. You don't always have to do it inside. It just gives them an opportunity to, one, get a little vitamin D from the sun, be outside in the fresh air, and just kind of learn and recognize the world and nature around them. So it's good for their mind, it's good for their body. Get them outside however you can.
Yeah, and even if it's just a little while, it's still better than sitting inside for hours on end. So I definitely echo that sentiment and agree wholeheartedly with that. I'm grateful now that I got to spend as much time outside as I did as a kid, even though I was very terrified of bugs outside growing up and really disliked the whole aspect of it. But yeah, it's definitely important for these kids to be able to get outside even just for a little bit.
It is. Playtime, it's just crucial for kids' development. And when we think about it, it offers so many things for them. It does help them get creative, but it also has social and emotional growth when they are able to interact with other people and kind of navigate certain social situations. It helps them figure out problem solving and decision making, and then it gives them, that cognitive and physical development that's also so important. Learning how to jump and move and play, strengthening your bones and your muscles, and then also just helping your memory and your brain develop. It's all part of being outside and getting moving. And not all kids like the same thing, so not all kids are going to want to go play baseball or slip and slide. You might have a kid that really gets into gardening, or maybe they like to paint rocks and then go on walks and hide the rocks. Anything to get them moving. You can be very creative with this. If they need time inside, they can paint the rocks inside, and then you can go on the walks and you can hide the rocks on walks later, and it's just a great way to kind of get them outside and moving.
Such a big deal, even if it's just a little bit. And what's great about that is the kids don't even realize that they're doing it. But that's part of the battle right there, is to be able to get the kids to do something that is helpful for them without realizing that it's helpful for them. So, Valerie, we are out of time. We got about a minute left. People want more information about your services and the programs that are offered. Where can they go to get more information?
So we have lots of programs in the community and economic development field. If you're ever interested, you can always visit our website. Just look up U of I Extension. You can use plus Christian County, and it'll come right up to our website. You can also call me at 217-532-3941.
Excellent. Valerie, it's always a pleasure to talk to you about some of the great stuff that you have going on. This was probably one of my favorite interviews that I've had all week. So thank you so much for your time, and we really greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. All right. So Valerie Belesko joining us. She is the Community and Economic Development Educator with the U of I Extension Office. Our morning show brought to you, our live stream brought to you by People's Bank and Trust, where we put people first. In Landmark of Taylorville, you always do better at Landmark. And this has been, again, Valerie Belesko joining us. Talk to us a little bit about summer break and helping your kids build resiliency and have some fun in the process. All right. More of the WTIM Morning Show coming up in just a little bit right here on WTIM, your information station.
Your information station, WTIM.
The Big 870 WTIM Assumption Taylorville. 96.1 FM Taylorville. 107.5 FM Shelbyville. 107.